Okay, I guess we're introducing ourselves. So we are TTB. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for showing up. We took all your names when you came in because we know you're here because you have issues. So we'll be contacting you guys later. Just kidding.
You're all in really big.
You're all in trouble. Okay. Thank you for those who've come to the booth. We've had many people come to the booth literally like this. You cannot see us. We are not scary. My name is Aniko Kasprian. I am the Outreach Technical Advisor for Industry. It is a new role for me. I've been in less than a year. For 12 years, I was an investigator with Western 2 Division, primarily working wine, but then I became a special operations investigator and did trade practice cases. So I am your field person, so anything that happens at the distillery, any kinds of violations, compliance issues, anything you have questions about, please feel free to ask me at the end, like what to expect if TTB comes knocking or gives a call. I can help you with that. I'm going to let my colleagues introduce themselves and tell you what they do at TTB and how they can help. We do want you to save your questions to the end so we can get through the whole presentation, but we appreciate you guys being here. Kelly?
Hi, I am Kelly Downs. I am a technical advisor for our application services division. So I help with permitting side of the applications, any of your amendments, new applications. That is what I am here to help with. I have been with TTB for 7 years. I started in our call center, so I have a vast knowledge of everything permitting and tax. So I can try and help with your questions. So, hand it over.
Hi, everybody. I'm Goodlow Harmon. I'm a formula specialist with TTB. I've been with TTB for about 3 years, and so I'm going to give a go today with the labeling side of things as well, formulation and labeling. But prior to TTB, I worked in industry as a distiller and production manager at a distillery in Nashville, Tennessee. So looking forward to the presentation.
So we drew straws before this, so Kelly and I have very short parts and Goodlow picked the short straws. You guys will be hearing Goodlow for most of this presentation. But I just kind of want to get a raise of hands. How many of you guys are consultants or attorneys? Okay. How many of you guys are distillers? Okay, for those of you who did not raise your hands, you might be in the wrong room. So you may want to leave. Okay, let's get started. So we, as any good federal presentation, we have a disclaimer. And that basically says that all the examples we use are just examples. They're not real distilleries, not real EIN or COLA numbers. Also, anything we say can be made obsolete by changing of the regs. We might get things wrong, which is usually not the case because at least I am always right. But sometimes we do get things wrong. So if we do, just consult with your regulations. Our mission, believe it or not, we have more than just collecting taxes, but the first one is collecting taxes on alcohol, tobacco, and firearms and ammunitions. We do more than just alcohol. We protect the consumer by ensuring the integrity of the alcohol products that you guys make. We ensure that only qualified businesses enter the alcohol and tobacco industries, and we prevent unfair and unlawful market activities for alcohol and tobacco products. This is our trade practice division. So let's just dig right in. And I'm going to tell you from an investigator standpoint, these are the top 5 compliance issues that I saw when I was in the field investigator. I would recommend you taking a screenshot of this. We are not going to share our presentation. So I cannot tell you how many times that I've been out to a DSP and I have seen poor record keeping. This is vital to not only all of your report of operations, but to your excise tax forms. You need to keep record keeping. You could get upwards of 15 violations just by not keeping proper records. So you need to keep records of everything from what you receive, materials you've used, gauging, proofing, transferring. Every single thing that you do or move you make requires a record. So make sure that you are keeping those records and who did that, who did that thing. There's a lot of times that the records that you do keep require that someone who is a key party or has signing authority do. So make sure you're aware of that. If you have questions about that, we can talk after. But record keeping is the number one violation that I give when I come out to do either a product integrity investigation or a revenue investigation at your DSP. There are several types of investigations, but those are the two main ones. Another one, this is the second comment, this is proof and fill records. You have to keep these, and it has to be signed of who took that proof and who did those fills. You have to also be sure to be taking your fill tests in increment amounts along your bottling. So make sure you're doing that and those are done correctly. I've attached the CFRs to this so you can go look up later to see what is the exact requirement for those. Third is late and missing reports and returns. This is really big. Please make sure you're doing them on time and please make sure you are doing them. Even if you don't think you have to do them, consult the regs and see if you do. Most of our investigations are random, but I will tell you data analytics is big at TTB. So we do red flag accounts who have late or missing reports. So make sure that you get those in. Number 4 is an inventory records for each of the DSP accounts and finished goods. So we're talking processing, production, and storage. I can't tell you how many times I go out and you might have your storage inventory, but you don't have your other ones. So please make sure that those are done. Again, I've attached the CFRs that are associated with each. COLAs. This is a big one. Not applying for a COLA when it's necessary or making changes that are not listed as an allowable change. So we have a boot camp series on our TTB website. It's called Boot Camp for Distillers. If you go to the ttb.gov website and in the search bar, put boot camp, and then it'll take you to all the different boot camps that we have. We have one for beer, we have one for distilled spirits, and now we're working on one for wine. Go to the Distillers Boot Camp, and I really would encourage you to watch all of the videos. They are very informative. You're going to see me on a lot of the videos. And really, it gives you a lot of information about the things that you need to know. But one of them is allowable revisions for COLAs. And if you don't watch any one of them, watch that one. That one is very important. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over now to Kelly. So I drew the longest straw, so I'm done for the day. It's Kelly's turn.
All right, so we're going to cover some hot topics. One of the big ones that we are really excited about is My TTB. So this will be our new way that we are doing business with everyone is My TTB. You'll log in to My TTB. That is where you will have your permits, your app, your colas, your formulas. Everything will be one-stop shopping. So that is coming soon. We are going to be rolling this out in phases. So I think our importers are already working in My TTB for their import claims. So we're slowly getting it out. So that is exciting news for us. Like I said, it is going to be a simplified process to apply for and amend your permits, reducing administrative burden. It is a self-service tool to manage your permit. It will hopefully provide faster permit updates, and it's more intuitive user interface. So it's going to be making it easier for you guys to file and comply. You will be, if you already are a permits online user, when we start rolling this out, you will be asked to create a My TTB account. And then our next project is the tax simplification. So we are trying to make reporting easier by combining the excise tax returns and operational reports. The distilleries, you guys know, you have a lot of reporting requirements. There are operations reports that need to be filed monthly, and then you have your excise tax returns. We are working on making that a little bit more easier for you guys. So new resources will be available, including crosswalks, instructional videos, and then other helpful tools. this is not my area, but we're going to take a shot at it. And I think that Goodlow can talk more on this a little bit, but we are going to be, there was in January, we proposed mandatory disclosures of major food allergens. That comment period closed on August 15th. You can visit regulations.gov to read the proposed rules and comments. And then our next steps, we are just going to be reviewing those comments and determining what, if any, elements of those proposals will be issued. And then our other one, again, not my area, but it's the standards of fill. These have been new changes. So anything I believe in the blue is a new allowable standards of fill. And those were authorized January of 2025. So that is all pretty new. All right. So a little bit my top permitting issues that we are seeing right now on the permitting side of things. When you guys are submitting your applications, the key contact email address, that needs to be not a generic or a shared email address, because when we move to the new My TTB system, it's going to be more difficult if you have a shared or a generic email. So we want first, last name @yahoo.com with something not specific like compliance at your distillery. So we're wanting those more specific email addresses. And then the key contact, that needs to be an owner officer of the company. Conducting other businesses on the distilled spirits plant premises, that is something that we do allow, but you have to put that in your application. So if you plan on making non-alcoholic beverages, or you're going to also have a t-shirt company that operates within where your distillery space is, that needs to be disclosed to us so that we can approve and say, yes, you can do that. Our next one is the transfer and bonds. So if you start receiving spirits from other companies and you have a non-contiguous premises, that's not a separate transfer and bond. And I can go into details after that or after the presentation. But if you have your main premises, it covers your non-contiguous. There's ways around that we can add in our comment section of that transfer and bond that it also extends to the non-contiguous, or it's coming from another distillery's non-contiguous premises. It does not require its own separate approval. And then just the last one is our separation. The tasting rooms and retail stores, they cannot be on your DSP premise, and it must have floor to ceiling separation from your bonded area. And then your alternating premises, there's also a requirement for physical segregation between the premises of different operations. So if you are sharing your distillery with a winery or a brewery, we do require separation and segregation of those operations. And I did cite the CFR for you right there, so you can look it up. All right, so my short time up here is over. I will hand it over to Mr. Goodlow.
All right, so formulas and labeling. Let's get into sort of formulas first, because as far as chronologically, your DSP, you obviously want to qualify as a DSP, and get all of your permitting in order at the state and municipal level as well. Once you have all of that in place, that's when you go to get formulas approved for any products that will require one. So formulas, like how many folks in here have submitted formulas for approval before? Fair amount. How many of you have had some formulas returned to you for correction? Probably about the same amount. Yeah. So I think we all have an idea of what a formula is. It's the recipe for a product. So it's in your formula submission in Formulas Online being the current online platform for submitting formulas to us. We want to see basically a full list of ingredients, quantitative lists. So ingredients with quantities, a batch size that corresponds with those quantities. And it doesn't have to be your actual batch size, just for reference for our purposes, we need a batch size, total list of ingredients, including water, any processing aids, and then a method of manufacture or description of how the product is made. There's some products require lab analysis. At our beverage alcohol laboratory, most products do not, but there are some that do. So we do have resources on our website that get into that. So definitely the TTB website is full of good resources. So I would encourage y'all to poke around. So when is a formula required? Basically, it's required if what you're doing to a distilled spirit would kick that distilled spirit out of its established standard of identity for the most part. Like if you add artificial sweeteners, carbonation, compounded flavors, any sort of flavor additives, and or any other additives that would remove the product from its class. Hemp derived ingredients would absolutely require a formula. And then there are certain class types that always require a formula, like liqueurs, flavored spirits. So I mean, and I'll just pause here to say the ECFR, the Code of Federal Regulations online is a great resource. I know it can be a bit of a slog, but everything's there. You know, all the info is there. The standards of identity in 27 CFR part 5, standards of identity are there, and kind of the definitions of the distilled spirit standards are there. So it's super helpful. So we also have a formula tool on our website, which you can kind of click through that helps you determine if your product requires a formula or not. So that's a great tool, and we have a new version of it that's coming soon. So definitely take a photo of that slide. So what do we look for in your formula? We look for classification. So because we will classify the product. We look for the components of the product. What's in it? What are the ingredients? What are components within the ingredients? In some cases, is anything restricted or limited or prohibited by the FDA? So that's kind of a big one. So the FDA, we defer to the FDA about ingredients and food additives. So if if you're adding certain botanical ingredients to a product, it is not we who determine if you can use it or not. It would be the FDA. So, and colors as well. We look for color additives. So some hints for submitting formula. We want that full list of ingredients, quantitative list, complete description of how you're making the product. At what stage and how much of each, any flavors or other additives are being added to the product. If you are using compounded flavors or flavors made at a flavor house by a flavor company, we 100% of the time just about will want to see a flavor ingredient data sheet as uploaded to a formula submission containing such a flavor. And so, or FID sheet, we call them FIDs. That should be supplied to you by the flavor company or the vendor of the flavor you're using. And we look at those. They tell us what, if any, limited components are in the flavor, and how the flavor was classified, natural, artificial, that sort of thing. And so it definitely helps us with the classification of the product and determining what the statement of composition would be, if applicable, or any required labeling info. So if you're using herbal ingredients or botanicals that may or may not be considered unusual, we would ask that you provide the scientific name for the ingredient to include the genus and species. Like if you're using basil, like we don't need the genus and species, but if you're using wormwood or, other kind of botanicals of which there are many species, some of which are allowed and some are not, that kind of thing. We want to make sure that what you're using is permitted for use in alcoholic beverages. And we defer to the FDA there. So I'll pause. I have an email for the FDA, the Office of Food Additive Safety. If you are considering using an ingredient that you're not sure if it would be permitted or not, I would encourage you to email the FDA and ask and describe what you're doing, what you're using, how much of the ingredient you're using, and that sort of stuff. So the email, if you all have, it's not on the slide, but if you want to write it down, it's PREMARKT. So pre-market without that second E at fda.hhs.gov. And come by the booth, or come up here, talk to me after this, and I'd be happy to get that to you. So formulas are often returned for correction for these three, one or more of these three reasons. We want to see a specification sheet for any ingredients you're using that are composed of more than one component, like things off the shelf, like grocery items, flavored syrups, things of that sort. We want to see a specification sheet or a photo, an image of the ingredient statement on the product label would suffice. So we would want to see that because we want to know what's in it. And the FID sheet, as I talked about, we want those. Those would be required for any compounded flavors you're using. And then we have on our website a limited component or limited ingredient calculation worksheet that is a spreadsheet that you can fill out using the FID sheet that you're provided from the flavor house, and that will tell you if there are any TTB or FDA limitations exceeded based on the flavor and the usage rate that you intend to use for the flavor. So that's a very helpful tool, and it's good. It would be best for you to tackle that before you submit the formula, because so if you need to reformulate to reduce the amount of that flavor or not. So I would highly encourage that. So after your formula is approved, the crucial tab in Formulas Online is the Results tab. So that is where you will find our determination of the formula, whether it's approved, returned for correction, return for correction would be a needs correction tab. But if it's approved, how it's approved, what the statement of composition would be if we provide that for you. So there is a classification that's kind of a catch-all called distilled spirit specialty product, and that for all DSS, distilled spirit specialty products, we provide a statement of composition, such as the vodka with natural flavors and artificial color, which you can use, or you will have to have a statement on your label, which you can use the generic kind of general one that we would provide, or you can be more specific. So when you get to go designing your label, you want to make sure you have the formula approval info so that you don't have to go redesign a label because your label is returned because it doesn't match up with the formula. So make sure that when designing your label, you know what you need to put on the label and where. So what is a cola? I'm sure we've all submitted colas before. So it's basically it's a label. It is a certificate of label approval. It's required for any product that will be sold in interstate commerce. If you are going to be selling it in your state only, in the state in which it was bottled, you do not need a COLA, but you need a certificate of label exemption. So that's a slight difference there. So yes, interstate commerce, COLA is required. If it's only going to be sold in the state where it's bottled, you need the exemption, and that label will need to have the statement of for sale in X state only. So for domestic products, you need to apply for your label before bottling or canning the product. So and you will absolutely need to have a formula approval if applicable before your label, before you submit your COLA, and before you bottle or package the product. For imported products, COLA needs to be obtained before before removal from customs. So labels must have there's certain mandatory information that must be present on a label. So the mandatory information: brand name, class type. So bourbon whiskey, straight bourbon whiskey, those are class types. That sort of thing. Within that, if you have a DSS, a distilled spirit specialty product, like if you start with a bourbon whiskey, you flavor it, and you add caramel color to it or something like that, then you would get your statement of composition with your formula: bourbon whiskey with natural flavors and caramel color. So you would want to have that on your label. That would be your statement of composition. Fanciful name would be your like whatever you want to call the product. Not necessarily the brand name, but the fanciful name, like Mighty Rollicky Moonshine or something. Alcohol content needs to be in the same field of vision. So brand name, class type, and alcohol content, same field of vision on the label. So that means 40% view of the label. So basically, in the same 40% view of the bottle, the mandatory information needs to be there. And it doesn't matter if it's the front or the rear label. It just needs to be on the same 40%. Any questions? Well, we'll save questions for the end. Yeah, I'm sure there are questions. So anywhere on the label, the bottle or importer's name and address, the contents, the health warning statement, or otherwise known as the government warning, you want to make sure that the health warning statement is correct, is accurately on the label. So government warning needs to be in bold. Punctuation, you want to make sure the punctuation's right, and no extra words. So we do see sometimes people throw in words to the heavy machinery, alcohol, like what it says, like operate heavy machinery. There's no heavy, just machinery. That's an example. So anywhere on the label, sulfite declaration, if applicable, any coloring, any color additives or flavoring material that you're going to be used. FD&C yellow number 5 is the only certified color that must be specifically named on the label. Cochineal extract or carmine, those are the same thing. That color needs to be specifically stated. Any treatment with wood, depending on the class type, It would need to appear on the label. A commodity statement or percentage of neutral spirits in the product would need to appear. And this is anywhere. These are all anywhere on the label. Age statements and state of distillation. So there are basically 12 standards of identity, general standards of identity. The 12th one, as I mentioned earlier, is distilled spirit specialty products. And those 100% of the time require a formula. And on the label, the statement of composition is required to be on the label. So DSS, distilled spirit specialty, if it does not fall under any of those standards, it would be the 12th standard of identity, distilled spirit specialty product. And within the DSS class, kind of a subcategory of that is cocktails. So DSS/cocktails. So we do, if you have a cocktail, if you want to make a cocktail, you can submit a formula as a distilled spirit specialty /cocktail. And that classification affords you an abbreviated statement of composition on the label. So margarita made with tequila and liqueur or triple sec, and you may optionally state the presence of yellow number 5 or a color as a part of that abbreviated statement. You don't have to, though. You could say margarita made with tequila and triple sec, and that's your statement. You'll just have to make the color disclosure elsewhere on the label. And the label must be truthful. Everything on the label needs to be accurate, truthful, specific, not misleading. So that's a big one. There is a regulation, 27 CFR 5.122B, 27 CFR 5.122B, which is misleading statements. So it's important to kind of see that, to know and understand how we must kind of scrutinize your labels to make sure they're not misleading. So translating formula to the label. The results tab is the biggie. So with your formula approval, you will want to go to the results tab and look at the labeling instructions at the bottom of the page, and that will give you your statement of composition, if applicable, and any required information that has to appear on the label. Class and type, statement of composition if required, alcohol content, mandatory disclosures, all determined by your formula submission. So you want to make sure when you're designing your label, you want to always reference that. So the label is not returned to you to make those corrections. So they're just a little screen grab. The results tab is the biggie. Formula tab would be where you input all of the recipe, the formula for the product. So that's what we reference and we look at to provide a classification. So resources, the TTB website has a bunch. So the formula approval guidance pages, the formula tool, which alcohol beverages require formula approval, that's really helpful. And you can Google most of these kind of statements and you will find them. The BAM, the Beverage Alcohol Manual, which is in the process of being updated. The BAM is still out there, and it's overdue. But chapter 1 commodity statements, chapter 4, and chapter 7 are all really, really valuable, useful tools and reference guides. for labeling. The labeling homepage, there are similarly great resources, including that last one, the Anatomy of a Distilled Spirits Label. It's an interactive tool, and that's super cool, super helpful for kind of understanding mandatory information, the mandatory information that needs to appear, in the same field of vision, and the information that does not, that kind of stuff. So, and contact info. Take a picture of this slide. You've got so our phone number 866-927-2533, and then those 4 kind of extensions are very relevant. So the labeling ones, technical assistance, and registration if you run into any hiccups there. Option 4 is for the distilled spirits labeling folks. So if you have any labeling questions, option 4. Option 7 would be the formulation office. So any questions with that would be where you would call. And we man the phones from 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday. So Eastern time. And then we do have an email contact form, like a web form online at that link.
Okay, we're not done though. I thought of something while I was sitting here. So I've been asked this a lot at the booth. We all have. So I kind of wanted to touch base on it. And that is alternating proprietors. I know that's everyone's favorite topic, and the CBMA tax rate. There are lots of rules that you guys need to follow if you're going to be either a host or a tenant of an alternating proprietorship. But one of the big ones is when you can take the CBMA tax credit. So make sure that you know those rules, because you can't take that $270 if you didn't do a TTB approved processing to that spirit. So you can't just be a tenant and your host does everything and then they transfer it to you and you bottle and blend it and then you get to take the tax credit. That's not how it works. If you have questions about what TTB approved processing is, please come up and talk to us after, or come to our booth and we'll talk about that with you guys, because we're seeing a lot of issues in this area, especially with DSPs. We also have had a lot of questions about alternating premises. So that is where you have different commodities on the same premises. So there are rules with that, especially with DSPs. Please come to our booth or come up after and talk to Kelly, and she will definitely help you out with that. And before we close, this is our survey. Everyone is going to fill it out or you get detention, okay? But please let us know if you enjoyed our presentation, or if you learned something new today, or if you want us to add something. If you'd like to see us more come out in person, let us know. We really appreciate it. And as with that whole data analytics stuff, this really does matter. So we're going to close out with a trivia question, because we're going to start playing games at TTB at the booth soon. Goodlow is going to create our game for us. So, but we'll just start out. Does anybody know what cochineal is? Okay. You raise your hand first. What is it? Okay. Does anyone know what more specific it is? It's used as red dye, but it's the female insect of a prickly pear, on a prickly pear plant. Okay, bonus, does anyone know the difference between the cochineal extract and the carmine extract? Goodlow, you cannot answer. Anyone? Okay, see, none of you get the prize then. Okay, they're actually the same thing, except the carmine is more refined and processed. It's still a part of the cochineal, but it has a little bit more additives added to it, but it's still basically ground up insects. So I thought we'd close with that. If you guys have any questions, please come and see us. I think 2 or 3 of you have detention, so please stay after. But others, go line dance. Questions?
It's an easy one for you guys. If your obligation on the excise tax dips down, is there a formal, and you're no longer a quarterly filer, you're no longer, you're switching from filing periods. Is there a special form to fill out or contact you guys, or what's the process?
No, if you drop down, like if you were, semi-monthly and you're not going quarterly, you just go ahead and start filing those. There are some regulations in there regarding like when that change occurs, what you need to do. So make sure you do check those regulations, but you don't have to notify us.
Okay, just follow the
Yep.
rules behind the scenes. Okay?
Yep.
You won't get dinged for not filing, that's because if you're a semi-monthly and you're going quarterly.
There's specific regulations about that change, but you don't have to notify us. So check the regulations. I can help you look for them after.
Anyone else have a question?
It's my understanding some years ago, TTB openly clarified that the toasted barrel was the same as the charred barrel. Is that true? Is it still the position?
I mean, I think that's definitely a conversation that's being had. It's because, I mean, from a physical standpoint, they're not the same thing, right? Toasting and charring are two kind of different chemical reactions, but from a TTB standpoint, I believe that we currently do still consider them the same for labeling, from a labeling standpoint. That may change though, and that's probably like a really insufficient answer for you, but
Yeah, as always.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like, right now going through, we want to just say, our barrels are toasted and charred.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's two barrels. That's
No,
like,
that's
it's
different.
Toasted and one barrel,
Yeah.
charred. Like, well, why are you even doing it? It doesn't make sense. And that was the feedback. It was like, wait.
That's completely different. Yeah, that's because most barrels are toasted before they're charred, right?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah, but the reviewer didn't like it. So
okay. Well, okay.
We've also been getting a lot of questions about staves. So if you have a stave question, please come to the booth and we'll talk you through that. Goodlow has been explaining it to us. And so please come by and ask about that because that is a hot topic right now. Anyone else? Well, perfect. Please fill that out. It's very important. And come see us at the booth.